Two worlds, one you can see, and one that sees you. The supernatural realm is real, it's close, and sometimes it crosses over. When it does, nothing is ever the same. America's Lady of Supernatural Thrillers, Marianne Paul, is here to take you straight into the shadows. This is Real Ghost Chatter. True tales from the other side. Let's begin.
Welcome back to Real Ghost Chatter. I'm Marianne Paul, and today I am taking you somewhere with a long-time haunting. I am taking you to the South Carolina coast, to a narrow strip of a barrier island where Spanish moss drapes the live oaks, and the Atlantic wind carries a chill that has nothing to do with the temperature. It is a place called Pawleys Island. Pawleys Island is one of the oldest resort communities on the East Coast. Families have been coming here for generations, drawn by the quiet beaches, the salt air, and the rhythm of the tides. It is, by most accounts, a peaceful place. But the people who live there year-round would tell you something else. They would tell you that when the sky turns a certain color, and the ocean goes flat and strange, and the air smells like something is coming, you might see him. He is a figure reported to be seen standing gray and still. He stands at the water's edge or moves slowly along the dune line. He does not speak to everyone, but when he speaks, the message is always the same. Leave now, and your home will be safe. They call him the Gray Man of Pawleys Island, and people had been seeing him for over 200 years. Before we meet the Gray Man, it helps to understand the place he haunts. Pawleys Island is only about 4 miles long and a few hundred yards wide in most places. It sits just south of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, separated from the mainland by a wide salt marsh creek. The island is low and exposed to the elements. When a hurricane comes ashore in that part of the Carolina coast, Pawleys Island stands directly in its path. And hurricanes have come, again and again throughout the island's history. There was the Sea Islands hurricane of 1893, Hurricane Hazel in 1954, Hurricane Hugo in 1989, and Hurricane Florence in 2018. Each one was a catastrophic event. Each one left destruction in its wake. The people of Pawleys Island have learned to read the weather carefully. They watch the sky. They listen to the forecasters. They know when to stay and when to go. But for more than 2 centuries, some of them had a different kind of warning system. One that did not require radar or weather satellites. One that appeared without announcement, delivered its message without explanation, and then vanished before anyone could ask a single question. The story of the Gray Man began, as so many true ghost stories do, with love and loss. The year was 1822. A young man who was the son of a wealthy family had been away for months. He had been at sea or traveling, depending on which version of the story you hear. And all that time he had thought of one thing, his fiancée waiting for him on Pawleys Island. She was the daughter of a prominent plantation owner. He was so eager to reach her that he made a fateful decision. Instead of taking the longer, safer road around the marshes, he cut through. He knew these low country marshes were treacherous. They were full of pluff mud, deep channels, and hidden drop-offs. But he was young and impatient and in love, and he could not wait another hour. His horse bogged down in the soft, sucking mud. The animal threw him. And the young man, so close to the person he loved most in the world, disappeared into the marsh before anyone could reach him. His body was never recovered. His fiancée was devastated. She walked the beach in the days that followed, grieving, unable to eat or sleep or think about anything but what she had lost. And then, one evening as the sun went down and the light turned the color of old copper, she saw him. He was standing at the water's edge. He was dressed as he always had been, but there was something different about him now, something gray and still. He looked at her with an expression she could not quite read, and he told her to leave the island, to take her parents and go, and not to wait. She did not understand, but she went. Within days, a devastating hurricane swept over Pawleys Island. Nearly every structure on the island was destroyed. The crops were ruined. Families who had not evacuated lost everything. Some lost their lives. But the plantation where the young woman had lived with her parents stood untouched, not damaged, not flooded, standing exactly as it had been before the storm, surrounded by destruction on every side. That was where the Gray Man legend began. What made the Gray Man different from most ghost stories is this. He did not appear once and then fade into legend. He kept appearing. He showed up decade after decade and storm after storm. He was reported by witness after witness across nearly 200 years of documented history, and the pattern never changed. Witnesses described him the same way every time. A figure dressed entirely in gray or in antebellum-style clothing, or sometimes in gray work clothes or coveralls. He was solid enough to appear human. But when someone tried to approach him, or when he had finished delivering his warning, he vanished. There were no footsteps leading away, and there was no figure retreating into the dunes. The man just vanished. In the years following the Sea Islands hurricane of 1893, sightings of the Gray Man began to be reported with regularity. The storms that followed brought more accounts. And each time, the people who had seen him and heeded his warning came back to find their homes standing. Let me tell you about one man's experience. It was the fall of 1954. A man named Bill was vacationing at Pawleys Island with his wife. He was an early riser, and one morning he went out for a walk on the beach before breakfast. The sky was clear. There was nothing unusual about the day. He noticed a figure far down the beach, walking toward him from the direction of the surf. The figure was dressed in gray. As Bill got closer, he could see enough to know that this was not anyone he recognized, and there was something deeply unusual about the way the figure moved, or perhaps did not move, in quite the way a person should. Although the figure maintained its distance, the man came close enough for Bill to see that his clothes and hair were dry. Bill was certain he had come from the ocean. Even more curious, there were no footprints behind him in the wet sand. Bill called out. The figure did not answer. Bill picked up his pace to close the distance, cresting a small rise in the dune line where the figure should have crossed. There was no sign of anyone. There were no footprints crossing the dune, and no figure visible in any direction. Bill and his wife packed their belongings and left Pawleys Island that same day. They told a few people what he had seen, but mostly they just went. Hurricane Hazel made landfall shortly after. It was a Category 4 storm. It tore through the Carolina coast with winds near 150 miles per hour. It leveled homes, flooded the island, and killed dozens of people up and down the coastline. Bill and his wife came back when it was safe to return. Their cottage was still standing. Yet, on either side of it, homes had been swept from their foundations. If these true stories stir something in you, you might want to explore what happens when the supernatural meets the world we live in every day. My Raven's Cove Iconoclast series does exactly that. 6 books of supernatural thriller fiction, rooted in faith and the very real battle between light and darkness. Start with Raven's Cove and meet Kat Melbourne, a woman who discovers that some things cannot be explained and cannot be ignored. Find the full series on Amazon or visit me at marianpaul.com. 35 years later, the Gray Man appeared again. Hurricane Hugo was considered one of the most destructive storms ever to strike South Carolina. When it made landfall in September of 1989, it came ashore as a Category 4 hurricane with a storm surge that in some places reached 20 feet. On Pawleys Island, Hugo cut the island almost in two, carving a new inlet where there had only been land. More than 100 homes on the island were destroyed or swept away. In the days before the storm, a couple named Jim and Clara Moore had been walking the beach at Pawleys Island. They saw a figure in gray standing near the dune line. They walked toward him. He stood still. As they got close enough to see his features, he turned, looked at them, and vanished. He didn't walk away. He was just gone from the middle of an open stretch of beach with nowhere to hide. The Moors evacuated that day. When they came back after Hugo, their home was among the very few in their area that had survived with minimal damage. Neighbors on both sides had lost nearly everything. After Hugo, the Weather Channel ran a segment specifically about the Gray Man, featuring multiple Pawleys Island residents who told similar stories. They had seen him. They had left. Their homes had been spared. None of them had a logical explanation, and most of them did not seem to be looking for one. People had wondered for 200 years who the Gray Man actually is. The romantic origin story about the young man who died in the marsh remains the most widely told, but there are other theories. One of the most compelling involves a real historical figure named Plowden Weston. Weston had been a beloved member of the Pawleys Island community in the mid-1800s. He owned a significant portion of the island's land, including the site of what became known as the Pelican Inn. This inn is one of the sites with the highest number of recorded Gray Man sightings. Weston served as a captain in a home guard unit during the Civil War. He contracted tuberculosis and was sent home to die among the people he loved. He passed away in 1864. The details align with the legend in notable ways. Witnesses who described the Gray Man in antebellum clothing were describing something consistent with what a man of Weston's era and standing would have worn. The Pelican Inn, which Weston had owned, drew repeated sightings, and the motivation fit as well. A man who had loved his community so deeply that he died there and apparently could not quite bring himself to leave. Historians and folklorists who studied the Gray Man legend noted that his story preserves something important about local history. The people of Pawleys Island had not always been famous or powerful. The Gray Man kept their story alive. He tied the community to its past in a way that no historical marker or museum exhibit quite managed. The Pelican Inn's longtime owner, Eileen Weaver, reported encountering the Gray Man herself on multiple occasions. She became convinced he was a specific person, someone she recognized from an old photograph. But she also said simply that she was not afraid of him. Whatever he has never been anything but protective. The sightings did not stop. In September of 2018, just before Hurricane Florence made landfall, a family visiting Pawleys Island reported seeing a gray figure on the beach. Florence was a slow-moving, catastrophic storm that caused severe flooding across the Carolina coast. The family left. Their property suffered minimal damage. In 2019, as Hurricane Dorian approached the coast, accounts of Gray Man sightings began appearing on social media, accompanied, in at least one case, by a photograph showing what appeared to be a shadowy gray figure walking near the surf. The photograph was disputed, as such photographs always are, but the accounts kept coming. In 2023, a photograph taken during Tropical Storm Idalia at nearby Litchfield Beach showed what several witnesses described as a gray figure moving through the early evening light. The image had been taken at 7:12 in the evening. The storm was already making its effects felt. And there, in multiple frames captured by a local photographer, was what appeared to be a misty gray shape that did not match any person known to be on the beach. 200 years of storms, 200 years of sightings, and the pattern had not changed once. Most ghost stories are about fear, about something malevolent, something threatening, something that wants to harm the living or trap them or drag them into the dark. Those stories have their place. We have told some of them on this podcast, but the Gray Man is something different. Whatever he is, he appears as a warning. People who encounter him describe not terror, but a strange calm and an unshakable sense that they need to leave, and that, if they did, something was looking after them. Think about that. a presence that appeared without fail for over 200 years, that never harmed anyone, that never demanded anything, that simply showed up before the storms and told the people it chose, "Go, and you will be safe." Whether you believe in the supernatural or not, the record of the gray man is remarkable. The witnesses were not attention seekers. They were vacationers, locals, business owners, and their families. They are people who, in many cases, told very few people about what they had seen because they were not sure anyone would believe them. They just left and came back to find their homes standing. I believe there are things in this world that we cannot fully explain and that we are not meant to. I believe in Scripture's assurance that there are more things in heaven and earth than our minds can hold. And I believe that sometimes, in ways we do not understand and cannot control, something reaches across the gap between this world and whatever lies beyond it. Whether that was the spirit of a young man who had died in the marsh in 1822, or a beloved landowner who could not stop caring for the community he had loved, or something else entirely, I cannot say. But 200 years of witnesses who heeded the warning and came home to find their houses standing, that's a story worth telling. Thank you for spending this time with me today on Real Ghost Chatter. If this story moved you, or if you have your own experience with the unexplained, I would love to hear from you. Find me at marionpool.com. And if you are looking for more stories where faith collides with the darkness and something remarkable happens, I invite you to pick up my Raven's Cove series, 6 books. One relentless battle between light and shadow. Start anywhere, but start. You can find them on Amazon. I will leave you today with a verse that feels right for this story. From the book of Hebrews, chapter 13, verse 2. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by so doing some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. We do not always know what we are encountering when something breaks through from beyond what we can see, touch, and measure. But sometimes it is exactly what it looks like, a warning and a mercy. Until next time, stay curious, stay faithful, and keep watching the horizon.
The supernatural world is closer than we think. Sometimes it chills us. Sometimes it reminds us we were never alone. 2 worlds, every single day. And the greatest power against the darkness has always been the light. Stay curious, stay faithful, and never mistake the darkness for the whole story. Thanks for listening. Until next time, may the sun always be on your face, the wind at your back, and the good Lord walk beside you.